Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Hey, check out our brand new sponsor, Dynamic Solutions 2. That's the number 2. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions. 424-888-2820. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. You get a 10% discount.
Hey, you, podcast listener. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. I'm the president of Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. You can find me at my website, emailrevealer.com. You can go there and get an autographed copy of my book. If you like today's show, check out OppermanReport.com, where we have our member section with all our exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. And our free archives are at Spreaker.com. Okay, I just got an advanced copy of this book. All the President's Women, Donald Trump and the Making of a Predator. It's written by Barry Levine and Monique Elfezi. Excellent. This guy's like a dog with a bone. This is a very well detailed book, and this guy's really in the know of all this stuff. Everybody who's been listening to my show since 2013, this guy knows what he's doing. Barry Levine, are you there?
Yes, I am, and really appreciate you taking the time to discuss this book. I do appreciate it.
No, I think I'm lucky to get you. I really do. Tell us about yourself. Who is Barry Levine?
Okay. Well, I have been a journalist in print and television for the past 40 years. That doesn't date me too much, but I've had a 40-year career in print and television. Over that period of time, I have covered everything from sports to politics to news to celebrity. But my true love has always been investigative journalism, and I've worked at newspapers, magazines, television shows, wire services, and digital media. Although I'm much more of a kind of an old dinosaur type of guy, and so I do, for the most part, admire long-form print. And I was a Pulitzer Prize nominee for investigative reporting. I was also awarded a Huffington Post Game Changer Award for my shoe leather reporting, and I live in New York City.
And how long have you lived in New York City?
I have been here now for 20-some-odd years, and I've worked in New York. I've done journalism in New York. I've done journalism in Los Angeles and cities including Detroit, Baltimore, and my hometown of Philadelphia. I've felt I've been fortunate that I have been able to continue doing today what I really set out to do when I was in grade school, which was to be a reporter. I managed to do that in one form or another for the past 40 years.
Okay, excellent. Now, the book starts out, you get into Trump's childhood, military school, his parents. What do you want to share with us about that?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit first about how this book came together, if I can.
Sure.
And that was obviously I was intrigued, like so many people were, during the 2016 campaign when the Access Hollywood tape emerged, and then we had 24 women who came forward with allegations of inappropriate behavior. Obviously, some who did unwanted sexual contact, other allegations which included, looking at women who were changing, young models in dressing rooms and so forth. The allegations really ran the gamut. And for the most part, I believe the media dismissed most of it. I think a lot of it has to do with the type of person Donald Trump is. Nothing really seemed to stick to him. I mean, when you think back to, for instance, had this discussion the other day, President Carter, years ago, when he said in a Playboy interview that he had lust in his heart, that created news cycles for weeks on end. And here you had Donald Trump all these decades later, also following the Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky scandal. It didn't seem to stick with him. His women supporters didn't seem to be bothered by the allegations. But as an investigative reporter, I certainly was intrigued. And we move up 2 years later to the spring of 2018, when the Stormy Daniels hush money allegations were first surfacing. And it was at this time in the spring of 2018, in hearing about the Stormy Daniels hush money allegations, that I thought, okay, there's something here. It goes beyond the 2016 women who came forward. There's now allegations of relationships he had that took place many years later. And I thought, is there a book in this? Is this something that the public really should have full answers to? Because I felt that the media had not really done the job at the time. And I set out at that time to work on a book proposal in an attempt to catalog the previous allegations and to see if I could add any more to that. And after several months of research, I then made the decision that I was going to move forward with the book. And I thought at that point it was incredibly important to bring in a writing partner and to bring in a woman, investigative journalist, because if I'm going to go down this road, I certainly would need her perspective. And so I was able to find Monique Alfaze, who was a veteran reporter here in New York, who over the years had relocated to Paris, France, to live with her family. Monique had written a book before on evangelicals and was very plugged into the feminist movement and had done a lot of writing for the Washington Post and other newspapers. And so I brought Monique into the picture as a true collaboration between two investigative journalists. And we made the decision that I would work from the field and report while Monique would work and shape the narrative and write the narrative, in addition to doing interviews. And the benefit, or I should say, what Monique brought to the table was allowing me to see that there was a lot more to the story than just new allegations of inappropriate behavior. She made me see that this was a much larger picture and that we had to tell this story or tell this book through the context of his entire life, his interactions with women, the influences he had, whether it be his parents or somebody like a Roy Cohen, who was his mentor for many years, and also spend some time in the book talking about the decisions that Donald Trump has made as president involving women and what his election has done for the Me Too movement. And in fact, I think we make a case that his election really, to some degree, created the Me Too movement. So it was all of that I went into this book project. And I'll just add that I was fortunate enough to work with two other journalists, one of them, Lucy Osborne, and the other, Whitney Clegg, and both of them were, between the four of us, we were able to, I think, do a very serious and impactful reporting job. Now, when you go to, getting back to your original question about his time in the military academy, that was really the shaping of Donald Trump and what he thought of women. Now, you got to remember, at the time, he and his cadets and roommates, and this was a boarding school that his father had sent him to straighten him out at the time because he was having behavioral issues in the school in which he was in New York. It was a boarding school. They slept in barracks and so forth. And from interviews that we did with former classmates of Donald Trump, they said that Donald Trump learned everything about women from Playboy magazine. Hugh Hefner had created a magazine a few years before, and at that time, this was the ideal for Donald Trump of what a woman should be. Again, this was a unattainable picture or portrait of a woman that Hugh Hefner put in the pages of Playboy magazine. But for Donald Trump, this was in his mindset of what a woman should be and the type of woman he wanted to go out with. And what's interesting is so many of the former classmates that we interviewed said, of course, their childhood view of women, of course, changed as they grew older and as they matured. But with Donald Trump, that vision that he had of these women in Playboy magazine never changed. David K. Johnston, one of his biographers, told me that Donald Trump has been living the age of 13 for the past 60 years, that he is a man who never changed his convictions, never changed his insight into any type of real maturity with women, that he looks at women today the same way he looked at them when he was 13 years old.
Yeah, and you get into that, too, even as a interaction with these models and stuff like that around the table, just as a childhood, adolescent, immature commentary and stuff with these women. A large portion of the beginning of your book deals with Michael Gross. And he's written some great articles about Trump's parties with coke and alcohol and teen girls. And he contributed a lot of what can you tell us about that portion?
Well, this, of course, was a section of the book that we initially, I didn't know where the reporting was going to lead us. I mean, again, my co-author, Monique, we both were journalists in New York for a number of years. So, of course, we knew about Donald Trump. Yeah. We had written about Donald Trump, and so forth, but we didn't bring anything to the table. When the investigation began for this book in the spring of 2018, I was not following any past allegations or secrets that I was aware of or anything like that. I started with absolutely a completely clean slate. In fact, when I was pitching the book to some publishers at the time before we settled on Hachette, they have just been tremendous, by the way, in terms of publishing this book. And I was asked by one publisher, well, can you reveal some of the secrets that you're going to reveal in the book? And I said, I don't have that yet. The reporting process hasn't started. Until we go down the road, I'm not sure what we're going to find. But I said, based on my work as an investigative reporter and editor over the years, I hope to bring new allegations to the table. And that's exactly what we did. And his relationship with his fixation on young models and so forth, as Michael Gross had pointed out in some of the work he did for the Daily Beast at the time when Donald Trump was running for president, was something that we certainly played off of and were able to dig in much deeper in reporting that was done for the book, specifically by Lucy Osborne, who had interviewed some of these younger models and knew of other women who had some stories to tell. And what we found out was that Donald Trump was really using his association with modeling agencies and so forth. Even before he started his own modeling agency, he was using he was using his access to these young models in something of his own personal hunting ground. And it wasn't only Donald Trump at the time. I mean, we talk in the book about the founder of Elite Models, a friend of his, Johnny Casablancas, in terms of some of the parties and some of the dinners, and how Donald Trump and many other wealthy, rich men, powerful men who had access to these modeling parties and so forth, were able to use their access to these younger models for taking advantage of these young women. And you told me that you had interviewed spoken to a woman named Heather Braden, who came to New York. She told me came to New York as a young model right off the bus from the Midwest and so forth, and really was able to protect herself more so than a lot of other young models who were taken advantage of. And she witnessed what happened when you have a man as powerful as Donald Trump, who was able to take advantage of these young women. We write in the book about when I interviewed Heather in Los Angeles. She told me a story about a party that she had attended, a bizarre party she had attended in Miami. when she was an older model, and it was a very strange party. The modeling agencies brought about 50 women to this mansion on an island off Miami Beach, and it was Donald Trump and, as Heather tells the story, 3 famous actors. We don't reveal the names of the actors in the book, but the story was, from Heather's perspective, that this was a party that really was used by Donald Trump and these 3 other men to take advantage of young models. And Heather witnessed Donald Trump and these other men taking younger models into private rooms, and sometimes a few of these women at a time, and they would emerge a little while later, and their clothes would be disheveled. They would look confused. While she did not go into the private rooms, although she was solicited by Donald Trump to go into a private room, and she turned him down, it was clear in her mind, having been around the modeling scene, that this was simply a party that was specifically for Donald Trump and these other men, these friends of his, to basically take advantage of these women behind closed doors.
Let me ask you this.
And
you mentioned earlier the name John Casablancas of Elite Modeling Agency.
Yes.
Now, he had his own reputation. In fact, he married a girl that he was dating when she was 16 years old, one of his models. And he used to have these little girls come into his office and weigh them on a scale in front of him. There's a photo of him at Studio 54 with these little teenage girls, and they have milk and cookies on a platter, okay? This guy's a piece of work. And this is Donald Trump's friend.
Yes.
All right. And Donald Trump then...
Go ahead. Donald Trump surrounded himself with these types of people. I mean, as the world knows, Donald Trump was also friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump claims, or at least it's been reported in court documents, that Donald Trump evicted Jeffrey Epstein from his Mar-a-Lago club many years ago, when an allegation came forward that Jeffrey Epstein had solicited a underage woman at the club who was I believe, the daughter of one of the members. And so Donald Trump reportedly booted Jeffrey Epstein from the club. But as we've seen through video that emerged just a few months ago that NBC turned up from their archive, the video showed a party in which Donald Trump had attended with Jeffrey Epstein with some NFL cheerleaders, and the two of them together were pointing out various women and making comments and so forth. I mean, you saw for the first time in actual video, you saw the relationship between these two men.
Right.
And this was just something that had been caught by a television camera at the time.
So when these people on Twitter say, well, Mr. Trump was oblivious to Mr. Epstein's interest in these little girls, he couldn't have been oblivious to Mr. Casablancas' interest in these young girls, because he married one of these little girls. And Trump also, and it's not mentioned in your book, but Trump also sent his little girl Ivanka to be a model for Mr. Casablancas.
Well, Donald Trump had no issues with his daughter becoming a model, and in fact, he very much endorsed her modeling and so forth during this time when he was, had his own modeling agency, and there's absolutely no question about that. But Donald Trump, it wasn't only Casablancas; it was other powerful men in the modeling industry, not only in New York but in Los Angeles and in Europe, that Donald Trump had aligned himself with. We tell a story in the book from modeling industry sources. We said in the 1990s that Donald Trump had asked a friend at a modeling agency to send specific models to see a doctor
Right.
so he can make sure that they didn't have any STDs. Obviously, Donald Trump had his eye on some of these models that he wanted to spend time with, and so he basically had them checked out. The one thing that I think we found in this book was patterns emerged as to his predatory behavior. And there was even a pattern with this thing about the sending models to a doctor to check them out for STDs. He famously talked on Howard Stern about how he was interested in dating Princess Diana, and how he joked with Howard Stern that before he could date her, that she would need to go to a doctor and get checked out. And he laughed about it with Howard Stern on the air. He repeats himself in his behavior, whether it's discussing models or having this certain mindset. I mean, we saw that in the book. For example, we interviewed a boyfriend of a supermodel. The supermodel was staying at the Plaza Hotel. She was a fashion event. Donald Trump at the time owned the Plaza Hotel in New York. And this model had a suite at the Plaza Hotel. And in the middle of the night, Donald Trump apparently entered the suite of the supermodel, believing that he would find her there in bed or something like that. What Donald Trump didn't count on was the fact that her boyfriend was with her in the suite at the time. They were in fact in bed together, as he tells the story. And Donald Trump entered the suite only to find not just a supermodel, but the boyfriend with her. And he immediately exited and went downstairs. They were so shocked that he would enter the suite or had access to the suite with her being there at night without knocking or calling. They chased him downstairs, and the boyfriend wanted to confront Donald Trump, and he had security around him and prevented this man from getting in his face. But what Donald Trump can say to this man, according to the interview that he gave us for the book, was, Donald Trump said, I don't need your sloppy seconds. It was vulgar. It was cruel. It was the type of thing that Donald Trump says to people almost every day, as we've seen in statements he makes as president and tweets he makes and so forth about women and men. It's just his behavior. But again, it fits a pattern. If you go back to some of the women who had filed lawsuits against Donald Trump over the years involving accusations of sexual misconduct, you find the lawsuit of the woman named Jill Hart. And in Jill Hart's court documents, as we found, she discussed an incident with a model named Lauren Petrella, who we have in the book, in which, according to Jill Hart, claimed Donald Trump entered the bedroom of this model in the middle of the night, and this woman Lauren Petrella found Donald Trump over her in bed, woke up to find Donald Trump over her in bed in the middle of the night. He had entered her room at Mar-a-Lago, and what his intentions were remained to be seen, but the story that was alleged in court papers was that this model managed to talk Donald Trump out of the room before any incident occurred. But again, it's his behavior, fits a pattern, and we see from the additional allegations we found for this book, which go well beyond the 24 allegations that came out in 2016, that his behavior has been very consistent in terms of groping women, in terms of kissing women, in terms of his attraction to younger models. It is extremely detailed in the book.
We're going to take a little commercial break. We're with Barry Levine. His co-author is El Faizi. The book is called All the presidents. I know, I'm getting to it, man. All the presidents women. Donald Trump and the making of a predator. Okay. And you can meet Mr. Levine here in person at October 30th, 7 p.m. at Barnes & Noble on the Upper West Side in New York City. And he'll autograph the book for you and stuff like that. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. There's some things that aren't in the book. You don't mention anything about Scores in New York, okay? And I've talked to many people who worked at Scores. I know people from Scores. Trump was a fixture at Scores. I'm wondering why you didn't talk about that. And also, too, his friendship with Adnan Khashoggi, who was a notorious trafficker of women as well. And there's even some stories about a model that was passed back and forth between the two of them. And Heather Mills, was later on a judge at one of Trump's beauty pageants. So I'm going to ask you about that when we get back. And then we'll get into John Tino and all that stuff you get exclusively. We'll be right back with more of Barry Levine. Excellent book. I can't recommend this book enough. All the President's Women, Donald Trump and the Making of a Predator, right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
My sound man, Shane McKay, has his business called MacSoundServices.com. That's MACK soundservices.com. What he does for me is I send him my shows, and he does audio enhancements and stuff like that. He does miracles if you see some of the stuff I send him and how it comes back. So get a hold of Shane at MacSoundServices.com. MACK soundservices.com. PureSoapFlakes.com. 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Tina Helmuth is writing an ongoing series of fact-fiction books that boldly takes on today's most heinous crimes, the abduction, sexual trafficking, and cannibalization of our children. Suffer the Little Children, The Wrath of the Father, and Unbreakable. Deeply researched and mixed with the supernatural, good versus evil makes these thrillers hard to put down, shining a light on the root cause of these crimes and introducing a spiritual solution. Justice will be served. Available at lulu.com in paperback or ebook.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're with Barry Levine, author of All the President's Women, Donald Trump and the Making of a Predator. You can meet Barry in person October 30th, 7 p.m. at Barnes & Noble in the Upper West Side in New York City. Now, even before I want to ask you those other questions that I primed you with before the break, when you were talking about the Epstein-Trump lawsuit in 2016 where they were accused of raping a 13-year-old girl, you didn't mention that Steve Bannon, who's friends with Jeffrey Epstein, seems to believe that case is real.
Well, listen, on the Katie Johnson case, of course, I mean, I could spend a year or two just investigating that case. I mean, that could be a book in itself. I mean, I had a deadline up against me, and it was important to catalog all the aspects of Donald Trump's life over many, many decades. And I wanted to go even deeper on Katie Johnson than we were able to go. But it's an important point in his life, and we do reference to Katie Johnson allegations. I tried to bring things forward that were new and exclusive, and what we report, which had not been reported elsewhere in the Katie Johnson case, was the fact that parties interested on her behalf after the 2016 election, while Donald Trump was president. In fact, in 2017, that sources had showed us a confidential memo that was sent to Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Again, this was in 2017, asking him and the then Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to look into the allegations involving claims made in the lawsuit by the woman known as Katie Johnson, a lawsuit which had been withdrawn, in which she had alleged that Trump had raped her when she was a 13-year-old at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion in New York. Trump had previously dismissed the lawsuit as a complete fabrication. And Katie Johnson, for the public that doesn't know the whole story, Katie Johnson was going to be brought out at a press conference to speak in front of the media during the 2016 election, and she received death threats, from what we were told, and backed out of, never appeared at the press conference, and eventually backed out of the lawsuit. But I find it interesting, and that's why I included in the book, that there were still parties on her behalf that were trying to get word out to investigate the Katie Johnson allegations, and that, in fact, a confidential memo had been sent to Robert Mueller. Now, we don't know the outcome of that. We don't know if Robert Mueller passed that to the Southern District of New York that, had investigated, for instance, the hush money payments and so forth. We don't know the result of that action, but it is interesting that into his presidency, there were parties working on behalf of this woman to have a proper and full investigation done while he was president.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mueller's team didn't look into this very much at all. Okay, I can tell you from talking to everybody involved. Now, you also Scores. How come you didn't get into all the activity at Scores?
Well, Scores is for people who are listening in who are not from New York City. Scores was a very famous cabaret and a topless club in New York City. It attracted strip club. Yes, it attracted a lot of celebrities over the years. It was very popular in the 1990s. There was a lot of athletes and sports stars who would party there and so forth. And Scores, I believe now is moved. Is still operating in New York, but has also moved out to places like Atlantic City, New Jersey, and Las Vegas, I believe. I didn't get into so much of if there were allegations that Donald Trump spent time there. We were really looking for instances of kind of behind the scenes types of behavior involving him with predatory behavior involving women who had not come forward previously. Listen, the book is, as it is, it's 360 pages. I'm just looking at a copy of the book here. The book probably could have been 500 pages. There's no question that there's other stories. There's no question that there's other allegations. Even Barbara Rass, who had been a top executive in the Trump organization, said that there had to be several other instances hush money payments made out to women that has not been reported. I mean, Steve Bannon says that there have been instances of 100 more women and so forth. But we were, I only wanted to put in the book what I felt comfortable in terms of documenting. We document almost 70 allegations of inappropriate behavior, much more than the public has been aware at this point. And I also have an extensive section appendix at the end of the book where I felt it was extremely important to put in capsule form and number each and every allegation against him, and also give him the opportunity to respond to the allegation if it was something that came up in 2016. And I've included all of his statements, all of the White House statements at the time, or campaign statements that he made before he was president. He denied, as we know, he's denied every single allegation. Before we went to publication with this book, in the summer, I went to, physically didn't go to the White House, but I sent them a 18-page memo outlining about 60 points in the book that I wanted to give the president an opportunity, in the White House an opportunity to respond on. The White House sent the memo. I got a call briefly on with Hooley, deputy president, said that he would look at the email, and I had an interview with Donald Trump for to discuss on these allegations, and we were met with wall of silence. They had no interest in speaking to us. And when a reporter asked last week, asked Stephanie Grisham, who is the acting or the current press secretary at the White House, about the allegations in this book, she dismissed it as trash. She said stories that go back 20 years, and completely dismissed and blew off the reporter when, in fact, many of these allegations are decades old. But when you have a man who is running for who is president and is running for president to be the leader of this country for another 40 years, it is extremely important that we be as transparent as possible, so the public has the right to know about this man's character, because he was America support every single allegation that's been leveled against him by women. The public has a right to know that, and I felt very strongly that this is an important book to write.
Okay, we only have about 20 minutes left. So I want to ask you about John Tino, because John Tino is a story that a lot of people know. When the BBC calls me up and stuff like that, they want to talk to me about these subjects because of the whole Epstein stuff. Everyone knows about John Tino, but everybody's afraid to talk about it, okay? And everybody assumes I know John Tino because I'm from New York and I have a New York accent. These guys from the BBC over there, I think we all know each other over here. Lay out the whole story about John Tino.
Okay. Probably the most devastating allegation in the book involves this man named John Tino. Now, when I was researching the book as I said, when I began researching the book in spring 20, and began going down that road of sources and trying to develop sources and learning some things that I should pursue from people that I found willing to help me. John Tino's name came forward. I didn't know anything about John Tino until my research period in 2018. And apparently reporters in New York, which I had been unaware of, had in fact attempted to investigate these allegations back during the 2016 campaign. In fact, I spoke to two reporters who told me that they believe this man's story, but they could not produce the cooperation necessary to get his story into print during the 2016 campaign. And John Tino is a mobster, or I should say was a mobster. He's a convicted felon. He went to prison for robbery, for fraud, for larceny. He has been in organized crime, or had been in organized crime his whole life. But that does not mean that because he's a convicted felon, that he's also a liar. We believe the testimony given, for instance, in the Samuel the Bull Gravana, who was a mobster who copped to many murders involved in the John Gotti days and so forth. So while this man John Tino may be a convicted felon, it doesn't mean that he's not telling the truth. John Tino's story is that between 1981 and 1983, he worked in a private brothel in Times Square above a theater that showed porn movies and live sex shows. And that this private brothel was run by a mobster, his boss, who was connected to a powerful crime family in New York. The boss, John's boss, operated a business, a legitimate business in which they distributed pornography all up and down the Eastern Seaboard. But the allegation from Tino and his boss was only this private VIP room in Times Square, where rich men, some of them connected with the mafia, would go and have encapsulated porn stars all day. And would pay $1,500 or what have you. They would have the money envelopes that would be prearranged. And the women porn stars back in the day, this is something out of the HBO series Deuce, which is on TV now. They would have these meetings, and as I learned by conducting dozens of interviews with the mob in the people connected to the mob or people connected to the Times Square sex scene at the time in the early 1980s, most of it was mob controlled. Most of the clubs and most of the places were places that the mob ran. And as porn movie directors told me in the day, the women who made those movies in the 1980s would receive next to nothing. They would get $100 or $200 for shooting a movie that which was shot in maybe 2 days or 3 days. They would make their money by their notoriety, and that was for many of them having personal private encounters with wealthy men who paid them for a night of pleasure. These men obviously were interested in the porn stars of the day. We know Donald Trump has a fascination with porn stars. The Stormy Daniels story says it all. But what this allegation in the book shows is that Donald Trump's preoccupation with porn stars actually dates back several decades, dates back to his marriage to Ivana in the early 1980s. Now, Mr. Tino's job was to collect the money from these men for these arranged meetings with porn stars and to bring the men into the rooms for their hour or so encounters. And then what the men didn't know was that Mr. Tino would then go into a locked room in the club, and he would watch a closed-circuit television monitor that was being taped he was basically watching what happened in the rooms live as it occurred. There was no audio, but he was able to watch on a remote television monitor what was going on in black and white. The reason why he was doing this was his boss, who, as I said, was a big mobster in New York, wanted to make sure that none of these men were roughing up the girls, that none of these porn stars were being beaten up. Because if they were beaten up, then they couldn't make the porn movies they were at the time. So John Tino was, as he described it, he sat in his private room with a baseball bat and a gun and watched on the monitor to make sure that these porn stars were not being roughed up during these sexual encounters. And if, in fact, he witnessed any of the girls being beaten up, then it was his job to go into the room and obviously throw the guy out. Now, Tino claims that Donald Trump was a patron of this private sex club in the early 1980s. And that he was known to him and his boss as, they referred to him as the real estate guy. Donald Trump had a particular fascination with a porn star who we call by her nickname in the book, which is Tree, Tri.
Let me stop you right there. I looked up the name you came up with for Tree, and it shows on Wikipedia that she was later married to a wrestler, a professional wrestler.
Well, I'm not in the book. I made the decision not to reveal her stage name.
You did.
I only refer to her as Tree in the book because I interviewed many people in the industry who told me that they believed that the woman had died because she could not be found for a number of years and had pretty much disappeared. But because I could not officially determine whether she was alive or dead, I decided to hold her stage name from the book.
Well, you did mention the name St. Croix, though. St. Croix. No, that's not the woman's name?
No, that is another. That's another porn star who I interviewed to basically ask her about, what went on during that period of time.
Okay.
Going back to the Tino allegation, not only did Donald Trump have the fascination with this particular porn star years before he got involved with Stormy Daniels, to Stormy claims, but one particular night or one particular day, or I don't know if it was a day or evening, he contacted Tino's boss and allegedly requested a threesome. Now, a threesome in John Tino's mind involving two porn stars would not have been a big deal. However, what made this particular incident stand out in Tino's mind that he recalls all these years later was the fact that Donald Trump didn't ask for another porn star to take part in the threesome. He asked for a girl, a young girl, and what happened was Tino's boss found a woman, a younger looking woman, for this particular threesome. Tree, the porn star, did not want to take part in this threesome involving the real estate guy and herself and this girl. But John Tino basically warned her and said, listen, are you going to tell him no? And he was referring to his boss, who was a very powerful mobster at the time in New York. And he basically said, listen, you better do this job because the boss is requesting it. Mm-hmm. And so she apparently went along with it. And when the girl showed up for the encounter, Tree asked the girl how old she was. And the girl said back that she was a teenager. Now, we don't know her exact age. I'm only printing what was relayed to me by John Tino. But he saw the girl, and he said she looked like Jodie Foster from Taxi Driver, a movie that had just come out. Famous movie now, but a movie that had come out a few years before. And Donald Trump.
We got to chew off there. We've got less minutes. And I have with a question. We got to have you come back, or have Miss Faze come back, or if you can get me Tino to come back. We talked off the air a bit about getting me some guests and interview about us. Because, guys, in this book, okay, there's 300 pages. He says there's 300 pages, but there's case after case after case after case. We could be here for hours and hours. Like you said, we could be here for hours just on the Katie Doe case. We could be here for hours talking about Tino. So you got to promise me, man, if you can't come back, you bring me some people come back, and we'll keep covering this book.
Well, I would love to come back on your show, and we could happy to pick up the conversation if you have additional interest. So you just let us know.
Absolutely. All the President's Women, Donald Trump and the Making of a Predator. And you can meet Mr. Levine here in person, October 30th, 7 p.m., Barnes & Noble on the Upper West Side in New York City. Hey, Barry, thank you so much, man. All right.
Thank you. I enjoyed our conversation, and I do think it's an important book, and I hope people will, at least if they don't buy the book, read articles about it online.
Oh, no, they're going to buy the book. They're going to
be more informed about the President of the United States.
Thank you, Barry. Good night.
Great. Good night.
My sound man, Shane McKay, has his business called MacSoundServices.com. That's MACK soundservices.com. What he does for me is I send him my shows, and he does audio enhancements and stuff like that. He does miracles if you see some of the stuff I send him and how it comes back. So get a hold of Shane at MacSoundServices.com. MACK soundservices.com. Emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online. Email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com. Digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages. Create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com. 800-572-9762.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. OppermanReport.com. Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Do you like the work that you see us doing here at Opperman Report? You can support that work by becoming a member at OppermanReport.com. And as you have access to over 200 exclusive shows and interviews that you can't find on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart or iTunes or KYAH. You can't find them anywhere else online, exclusive to our member sections, to our members. Also, too, there's images, videos, documents, court docs, a lot of content there at OppermanReport.com. And it's the memberships that support the Opperman Report and allow us to play these shows for free on Friday nights and Saturday nights on all the stations you hear us on. You can also make a donation at OppermanReport.com. If you want to support the show and become a member, I can give you a discount. I'll give you 13 months for $65 if you email me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can hear your ad played here on the Opperman Report, reach hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis because the show is repeated every day all over the world. Contact me at OppermanReport@gmail.com and I'll give you a good deal on advertising rates.